I mean, Gabe did that because he knew it would piss me off.
That's why Gabe does most things. So,
but I mean, the reason I didn't want to do it the first time was because it's like, what does that have to do with this?
It's an advertisement for free to 500 Instagram followers.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Axe Brother Podcast. My name is Gabe Edwards. I'm here with Lauren Reedy.
Hello.
Josh Rosa.
Hi.
And John Mule.
Start over.
Good afternoon. Start
All right.
over. Start
No.
Why is it always like that at the beginning? Like no one knows what to say.
I knew what to say. I said it. All right, so
you scooted your chair up like right in the middle of your.
Start over.
So this week we watched the Babadook. This was Lauren's pick, and I thought this movie was awesome. Lauren.
Wow, a rare reaction from Gabe. He actually liked a movie.
Yeah, we'll get into it.
Not a Marvel character in sight, and you still enjoyed it.
I didn't cry watching the movie, but I tried to. There was a scene I liked, and I went and told my wife, and I said, "Oh, there's a scene where this happens." As I'm describing this scene, I start to tear up because I was like,
Yeah,
it was so beautiful. Like, I don't know. I thought this was a really good movie. I don't know that I have a bad thing to say about it. I was nervous watching this movie because it's gotten so much. I don't know. Yeah, and just like when a scary movie when you hear a scary movie delivers, you know, it's never gonna ruin your life. But I'm like always like this might ruin my life, you know.
You thought that?
I was like
you would suffer like
Mentally.
mental anguish. And
it's never happened,
never get
but
over it.
I do have that like this is gonna like change me in some way, or I'm gonna now be afraid of top hats, or I don't know what, you know.
You're gonna get a top hat tattoo.
I might have to now.
This movie deals with some real fears. I mean, in the past we've dealt with, swamp creatures and fog ninjas, and I think this movie deals with actual fears, existential fears that we all have. So just getting deep real quick.
What are those existential fears you speak of?
A loved one with mental illness, not sleeping, not dealing with the fact that you're going to die, damaging a child emotionally. I thought those are all things that I've thought about in my life.
Well, we try not to talk about the films when we get together, but I had talked to John earlier this week, and I had about 30 minutes left of the film. Well, before we get too far ahead, I don't know, Lauren, this is your pick, but do you feel like you're the best person to kind of assess, like give people a quick rundown what happened in this film? How's it start? How's it end? Was it in the middle?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it starts with this woman, Amelia, is driving a car, and she gets in a car accident, and her husband dies, and you fast forward 7 or 8 years, 10 years, and you find out that she was pregnant at the time, and her son have survived, but her husband's death is still kind of plaguing them mentally, and especially her, and her son starts getting into trouble at school, and then they find this book mysteriously. She finds it on his bookshelf, and he wants her to read it to her, and it's about the Babadook, and it creeps them out, and then kind of things start happening from there.
The book says things like, the more you resist, the more I will be here. You know, the harder you push, the harder I'll come, all that stuff.
Yeah, let me
I'm trying to think of a non-pervy way of saying that, but...
Whoa, yeah, that's the erotic fan fiction.
Oh, yeah. Babadook.
Well, right off the bat, I mean, her child is a little mischievous at the beginning, but I had this sense in the beginning, this is the coolest kid ever. He builds machines. He dresses as a magician. This is what I imagine David Bowie was like as a child.
This was like my imaginary best friend growing up.
Yeah,
just like
Wait, both you're saying that in agreement?
oh, I think he was a cool kid.
I like when he
Oh,
randomly
no.
throws fire.
I hated the
What the
I hate this child.
He throws firecrackers at people.
Yes.
He's a demonic.
Well,
No. Okay, so later on, he starts having trouble in school. But you're talking about in the beginning.
Even
when
at the
He's annoying
beginning.
from the get-go.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Now, I'm glad we're split and we know how it goes, but I will say there's only one instance where because we always hear about this kid being a hassle in school, and you see the teacher tell the mother he said this or did that. There is an instance where, I guess it's his cousin. He's at her birthday party, and we actually see the situation where he gets into trouble, and it's because his cousin is this I don't know,
Horrible.
shitty
child.
person, and she's taunting him because like you don't have a father, he doesn't love you, or
This movie's
I like your Australian accent.
yeah, you don't have a father. And
Did you audition for that role?
he pushes her. I'm still auditioning. He pushes her out of the treehouse, and she breaks her nose in 2 places, which I don't think that's not a thing.
Did
I
they
think
say
it is
that?
a thing.
Did they say she broke her nose?
Remember at the end, he goes, I broke me cousin's nose in 2 places. Remember that?
I don't think Australians say me
you-
like a
Yeah,
pirate.
are you going to do that horrendous accent this whole time?
This is not Oliver.
I thought you guys liked the accent.
No.
So, but we kind of see he's totally justified, which I think argues in all of the reports of his bad behavior, is he not justified? Because he's a little bit of a weirdo. But why did you guys hate him so much?
I'm not saying he wasn't justified, but he was annoying as fuck.
Why was he annoying?
What was annoying? I don't understand what was annoying, except for he's raised by a single mother.
Annoying.
Which I find annoying. No, he's raised by a single mother, and she is having trouble with him. And those were parts that for me were very intense. Like, fuck, what would I do if I had a child and he had these emotional issues, or he did, see things? That would be hard for me.
Yeah, I mean, this is the total asshole take on it, but he is annoying. Like,
He's really clingy.
it has nothing to do with
and
his
needy.
behavior in school, but yeah, it's just like his. I don't know. I see you're taking the sympathy side, and I felt that, but God, I was just both times I watched this movie, last night when I was watching it with my brother, we were both just like Caleb was like, I don't even know if I can watch the rest of this movie. This kid is so annoying.
What? he builds this backpack in the beginning that throws cricket balls at things, through windows and stuff.
Yeah, that's
and I thought
cool.
that was so cool. And then he's always doing magic tricks.
That would be alarming as a parent, though. But you realize he's justified because, so what happens is he starts building these weapons. He has a dart gun. He has this cricket ball launcher.
Doesn't he have a crossbow kind of?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you realize, though, he's kind of being haunted by this boogeyman of sorts, this Babadook. And so you're like, oh, of course, if you were being tormented by this evil demon spirit thing, then that's awesome. This kid's building these devices to defend himself. But as a parent, you could see that being alarming, right?
Yes. Which is again, that's the real fear. The real fear of having a child and they turn up having these crazy issues. I mean, that's that would be a hardship in life, right?
Right.
It is another one of those common tropes though of horror movies that the people who are really suffering are seen as crazy, while the girl in the princess dress who makes fun of him is seen as some victim.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I still don't feel like you two have... Why is this kid annoying?
I mean, I think it's just a visceral reaction. Like I said, I think maybe, I'm not sure. I mean, I guess, John, you're saying you sympathize, empathize with the mother, but I think I, obviously being a woman, was oh God, what would I do? And the scenes, just the scene, and I think they had these early on, the scenes where he, she's trying to sleep and he like needs to be in her bed, and he's like clinging onto her body.
Grabs her throat.
Yeah. But I feel like at the beginning it's subtle. He like starts grabbing her throat when he starts getting more disturbed. But even at the beginning when he's like, "Mommy, can I sleep in your bed?" I'm like, "Oh God!" I'd be like, "Sleep in your own goddamn bed."
Eat your own shit. That's what you'd say to him.
Well, so to carry on with the synopsis of the film, it seems like the Babadook slowly possesses the mother and leaves the boy, and through the mother, she kind of has these spells where the Babadook in her comes out and says, "Eat your own shit," or whatever, and he has to turn on her in such a way, and he's battling the Babadook, but he's preserving her life as his mother.
The little kid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Samuel. And all the while, there's the whole thing where, like, her sister stops coming by, stops bringing her daughter. The neighbor woman, Mrs. Roach, oddly enough, I thought, named, because they have roaches in one part of the film, but is kind of concerned.
And then there are the two social workers.
The social, and then if we can just, I'll give you this synopsis and we'll move on. But then, I don't even know what to say.
Who's he?
Samuel.
Okay.
He, there's some stuff about who is the Babadook, and she encounters her dead husband downstairs in the basement, and
not him, like a figment.
well,
This is the end of the. You're going to the end of the movie.
I'm just laying it all out so we can talk about it, because I feel like sometimes people are a bit lost if they haven't seen the film. But ultimately, Samuel traps his mom, ties her down, and in a sense, I thought it was weird that it seemed like this is the point where the priest comes in for an exorcism, but they never really go there. They kind of exorcise this thing themselves, and that's more or less the end, when you say. And there's some other stuff that we'll get to, certainly. They keep the Babadook under their stairs, which is an odd twist, I thought.
Well, I mean, not to get into the heavy stuff. I mean, I think it's about grief.
Right.
And so the kid, I did think there was an interesting twist that you think it's going to be this like child who becomes a demon,
right.
And then the demon starts kind of like more inhabiting her, and you see less of it in the kid. And so the Babadook under the stairs, like keeping him, I think it's like a commentary saying like you can't ever get rid of your grief when something really horrible happens to you. You kind of just have to live with it and like come to peace with it, and it's still going to scare you every once in a while, but.
Now, John, you had said to me earlier this week, we'd discussed it without discussing it, but you said, do you know what the Babadook is?
Right.
Is it grief to you?
For her, I think it's grief, but I think the Babadook was anything you just haven't dealt with. Like there's one point when she's reading the book, and it's either the book or the Babadook says, the more you try and like push me away, the more I'm going to show up. And so yeah, for her, I guess it's her husband's death and the difficulty of her son, maybe, but it's this like life is hard and it's always there, and you have to.
And then at the end, when because so she has to feed. So good, Lauren. When you, I mean, I love this before, but Lauren, when you broke down, because I was kind of still like, what is this thing that she's keeping? Because John, when you said to me earlier this week, do you know what it is? At that point, she'd encountered grief downstairs as her husband, in the form of her husband, and he said, "All I want you to do is bring me the boy," And so I thought you were suggesting that somehow it's the father, the spirit of the father. But when you just laid it out there for me that it's grief, it's so just fresh and poetic and wonderful, and they're in the garden at the end of the film. Gathering worms, and then the mom says, "Okay, I'm going to go in. You go outside. Don't come in until I go out." She brings the worms into the room under the stairs, which seems to be feeding the Babadook, and it's there for her. I mean, it almost like attacks her, and she says like, "It's okay, it's okay." Or I forget what it was, but it's almost like a pet now they have under the stairs.
Sure, and she can't show the boy until he gets older, she said.
Yeah. But so I don't know. I just
There's a line.
loved it.
There's a line when I believe she's tied up in the basement, and the little boy says, "I know you don't love me. The Babadook won't let you, but I love you, Mom, and I always will." And so I thought that was kind of strange that the little boy had some insight, at least more insight than his mom, into what this thing was.
Well, I think the reason he's like acting out at the beginning, and I think I read something about this too, is like he can sense that she hasn't coped. Like she hasn't moved on, she hasn't dealt with all her feelings, and so he's acting out in a way to like get her to pay attention to him. And that's why he kind of seems demonic at the beginning, but really like all this negativity and like energy is in her, like her not facing this.
Well, and now that you label this thing, the Babadook, as grief, and it's like it's always going to be there, and you always have to feed it in a sense. And because the thought I had was like, why would they keep this horrible thing with them? But it's like everyone's got their skeletons in the closet or Babadooks under the stairs, and the part that got me when I expressed it to my wife when I said there's this film, there's this demon possessing the family, and it gets the mom and she's going after the son. The son stabs her in the leg, and then shoots his croquet or cricket ball gun at her, and she wakes up tied up. And I love that he stays in the room with her while she's tied up, and he's just like, I'm not going to leave you. And he's kind of terrified, but he's like insistent he's going to be there for his mom. Like, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
You're tearing up right now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. There were moments of this movie, there are only a few movies I've ever cried at, but there were moments of this movie where I felt like I wish I could cry at this right now. I can't, but it was on that level a meaningful movie.
What was it for you that you felt this way?
I think the fear of being alone, being misunderstood, damaging a child emotionally. You know, I work with kids in my other job, not just this podcast.
Not John Mule, but this other guy.
I do have a fear of, when she tells her son to go eat shit, like he's asking for food. I just felt like I could sense that there was something obviously that she wasn't dealing with, and I was wondering how much of the father was going to come back into play, her dealing with her demons, and then also having a loved one with mental illness. As I think early on in the movie, they were constantly kind of pathologizing the child, like he's got these problems. And it's not that simple, but having a loved one who is dealing with emotional issues is a hard thing, and that was very heavy for me.
And just think, they could have taken the same movie and made this like shitty drama about this like depressing movie about this like he died and then it's just depressing. But the fact that they like twisted it into this horror film was just like, oh, so good.
Well, and I'll say we talked. When Lauren mentioned that we were going to watch this movie, we talked about our friend John Whitney and how he had to turn this movie off halfway because he was so scared of it. And I did find the movie scary in the sort of the traditional sense, what's going to pop out from behind, the closet or whatever. But I felt like the themes were scarier than the actual terror of the movie, and there was like almost like an emotional okay, I need to like take a break from this mom screaming at her child. Like, that was really heavy, and I was kind of like, man, this is exhausting to watch over and over.
Yeah. I didn't think this movie was scary, but I definitely, like, going back to kind of like the emotional weight that we talked about with Suspiria. I felt that with Babadook. Like, it didn't scare me, but not so much the second time, but definitely the first time I watched it, I was just kind of like, I can't like handle all of this at once. It's too much. And part of it is like, because like I think that kid is annoying, but then realizing like, that's kind of like the horror of it is that these people's lives, and this mom has to live with her son who is this way, and I don't know. Yeah,
and I think I feel like I kind of jokingly came down harsh on the kid, but like the other.
I think he's annoying.
No, he is annoying, but the other reason we didn't say that she like he's a burden to her is that he like constantly reminds her of her dead husband because he was born the same day that her husband died, and so then like that on top of him acting out is like she doesn't want to even be around him really.
She can't even use her vibrator without the kid interrupting.
Dude, I loved that scene.
I thought, respect for having a vibrator scene. I thought that was...
I wrote down in my notes, how old is that vibrator?
What?
Because if you remember...
Why did you write that down?
Wait,
remember what it looks like?
It's not like they showed a close-up of it.
I didn't see it.
They showed it sitting
really?
on the bed. It looks like a handheld cordless telephone that my family had in like 1992. Like, that's how big it is. Like a brick of a hand phone.
Just those of you out there, Josh is big on vibrator technology.
Yeah. He knows the history.
Yeah, come on. They had cell phones in this movie. They don't.
Maybe she just like
vibrators
really
from
needs.
She needs to get the bullet.
No, I'm saying.
Well, it is
she
Australia.
needs to get the job done.
Their sexual technology may be behind.
Is it?
It's Australia.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No.
Did you guys maybe this is just me, but did it seem like it was obviously made by a female director? Because there were certain parts of this where I was like, well, you don't usually see this in horror movies. And then when I read that it was a female director, like the vibrator scene, the fact that, like, I'm like, a guy wouldn't probably put that, unless it turned it really sexy.
And it wasn't like really sexy. It was like, this is just something
to go to
she
sleep.
does. This is a part of life,
When she's doing anything to get some kind of release or comfort.
Right, and then he interrupts it again.
And like even that private moment.
I'm wondering, so I halfway through this movie started reading about Jennifer Kent, the director. What are those things for you, Lauren, that stood out as like this is directed by a female?
I think just that she was able to get to the idea that like sometimes she even has a quote in an interview. She says, "Now, I'm not saying that we all want to kill our kids, but a lot of women struggle, and it's a very taboo subject to say that motherhood is anything but a perfect experience for women." And I think a lot of times, like, mothers in especially horror films are either demonized or they're angels.
Yeah.
And to have her be, like, the perfect combination of, like, she obviously loves her son, but that doesn't mean that she, like, always wants to be around him or doesn't, whatever. That kind of felt as you could only do that if you had experienced it yourself.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Reading about Jennifer Kent afterwards, I was just super impressed with her. She's just a fucking badass, I feel. So she did not go to film school. She saw the movie Dancer in the Dark by Lars von Trier. Did anybody read this? Mm-mm. She saw the movie Dancer in the Dark by Lars von Trier. She liked it so much that she wrote to him and said, I think the idea of going to film school is stupid. I don't want to do that. Is there any way I can meet with you? So he invited her to sit on the making of his next film, which was Dogville with Nicole Kidman, and that's kind of where she learned about film.
Oh yeah, I did read this, but she was an actress.
Oh, I didn't read that.
Yeah, she went to school with the main actress in this movie.
Oh, interesting.
She's in one of the Babe movies.
Babe, the Pig in the City?
Yeah.
The director or
Jennifer Kent?
The mom?
Jennifer Kent.
Oh, that's crazy.
That's so funny.
But she's been interviewed a couple times about
the sequel.
Why,
yeah.
Okay.
I didn't see it. She's been interviewed a couple times about why there are not more female filmmakers in the horror genre. And this quote from her that I just really liked, she said, "We know fear. It's not like we can't explore the subject." And I thought that was kind of an interesting, just this realization for me. Like, of course women know what fear is, and why aren't there more female directors that are doing this?
Yeah, I think she also said that, like, when she said she was starting to direct a horror movie, people are like, "Oh, why would you want to do that?"
Right, exactly, yeah. But it was, I agree, it was like a different perspective. And certainly, you're right, the mother is more complex than we normally see women in horror movies. And this movie does, I would assume, pass the
Bechdel test. Yes.
Yes, it does.
What's that? Who? I don't know. Who's that from? I know you covered it last.
Alison Bechdel. It's on a random test, but she's actually a cartoonist, and she like wrote a cartoon about like, isn't it odd that you never like it's so rare to see two women talking to each other in a movie about anything other than a man? And then people were like, that's actually like, let's study that and see if that's true. And it's true that a lot of movies don't pass it.
And this movie does have the mother has a coworker who is almost kind of trying to like, you know, flirt a little, like see her, and I feel like it just kind of trails off. It never really goes anywhere.
Yeah.
Which is fine, like, but it was just kind of like, oh.
I kind of was thoughtful about the because I don't know, I don't know what point I'm making other than there's these interesting moments where he would say things like, "Oh, you're in a kitchen where you should be," like these kind of shitty things, but she kind of laughs him off. And I was wondering, especially, do you guys remember this?
Yeah.
If directed by a woman, what's the thought process behind this sort of jokey misogynism? But she doesn't seem put out by it at all. It almost seemed like, I don't know, it was like culturally, it was like maybe it's just like, that's fine, we know this isn't serious.
Wait, her potential love interest says that to her?
Yeah.
I got the idea that they were both joking about that.